The grand hall of the Velkari Palace stretched so high that clouds formed near its ceiling. Quan had never seen anything like it. He stood in the servants' gallery, still wearing his grease-stained work coveralls, feeling completely out of place. Below him, the greatest warriors and nobles from across the galaxy waited in perfect rows. Their armor gleamed under lights that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. Quan shouldn't have been here at all. 3 days ago, his mining ship had broken down near Velkari space. The engine core had cracked and he'd been drifting, running out of air. A Velkari patrol found him and brought him to their capital world for repairs. They'd told him to stay in the palace guest quarters until his ship was fixed, but Quan had gotten bored and wandered into the wrong corridor. A servant had shoved him into this gallery before he could explain he didn't belong. The ceremony below was something important. Quan could tell by how serious everyone looked. Thousands of aliens filled the hall. Some had scales, others had fur, and a few seemed to be made of living crystal. All of them wore expensive clothes and jewels that probably cost more than Quan's entire ship. At the front of the hall sat 2 thrones. The larger one held Empress Talvera, the ruler of the Velkari Empire. She looked human mostly, except her skin had a faint blue tint, and her eyes were solid gold with no pupils. She wore a crown that floated above her head without touching it. Next to her sat a younger woman who must have been her daughter. Princess Arenvel looked bored. She rested her chin on her hand and stared at nothing while an official read from a long scroll. Quan couldn't understand most of what the official said. His translator device only knew basic trade language, not the formal speech they were using. But he got the general idea. The princess had to choose someone. Each candidate stepped forward when their name was called, showing off their strength or their wealth or their intelligence. A massive warrior from the Dragath species lifted a stone block that must have weighed 10 tons. The crowd gasped and clapped. The princess didn't even look up. A scholar from the Mindari demonstrated telepathy by making objects float in complex patterns. More applause. The princess yawned. A noble from some species Quan didn't recognize displayed a hologram of his family's 12-star systems and countless resource planets. The crowd murmured with approval. The princess examined her fingernails. Quan felt sorry for her. She looked trapped up there, forced to sit through hours of people trying to impress her. He knew that feeling. Back on Earth, before he'd left for the colonies, his parents had tried to set him up with the daughters of wealthy families. They'd all been nice enough, but none of them had cared about him. They'd cared about his engineering degree and the money he might make someday. The viewing screen next to Quan flickered and went dark. The other servants in the gallery grumbled but did nothing. Quan looked at it for a moment, then pulled out his multi-tool. He'd fixed 1,000 broken screens on mining stations. This one couldn't be too different. He unscrewed the panel and poked around inside. The power coupling had come loose, probably from vibrations when everyone had entered the gallery. Simple fix. He reconnected it, rerouted 2 wires that had crossed, and the screen came back on. The servants around him looked surprised but grateful. Quan didn't notice that he'd drawn attention from below. Princess Arenvel had finally looked up from her throne. She'd watched him work on the screen. She'd seen how he'd approached the problem calmly, without asking for help or giving up. She'd seen how he'd used tools that looked primitive compared to Velkari technology, but he'd made them work anyway. The official called forward the last candidate, a perfect specimen from the Velhari's own species. He was tall, handsome, and descended from 5 generations of war heroes. He bowed perfectly. He spoke eloquently about honor and duty. The Empress smiled, clearly approving of this choice. "Princess Arenvel," the official said, "you have seen the finest candidates the galaxy has to offer. By ancient law, you must now choose your consort. Who do you select?" The hall went completely silent. This was the moment everyone had been waiting for. Betting pools across the empire had billions of credits riding on the princess's choice. Alliances between star systems would be formed or broken based on her decision. Princess Arenvel stood slowly. She looked at each candidate in turn. Then she looked up at the servants' gallery. Her golden eyes locked onto Quan, who'd just finished putting his tools away. "I choose this one, Mother," she said clearly. Her voice carried through the massive hall. She pointed directly at Quan. Every head in the hall turned to look at where she pointed. Quan looked behind him, thinking she must mean someone else. But there was only a stone wall behind him. "Me?" he said, though no one could hear him over the sudden explosion of noise from the crowd. The candidates shouted in protest. The nobles began arguing with each other. The Empress stood from her throne, her face showing shock and anger. Guards rushed forward, not sure what to do. The careful order of the ceremony collapsed into chaos. Princess Arenvel remained calm. She waited for the noise to die down. When it didn't, she raised her hand. A pulse of energy spread through the hall. Not harmful, but impossible to ignore. Everyone went quiet. "Mother," she said, "I have made my choice. By the ancient laws you uphold, my selection is final." Empress Talvera looked like she wanted to argue, but she couldn't. The law was clear. The princess's choice, once made, could not be questioned. It was the one freedom the heir was allowed. "Bring him down here," the Empress said coldly. Guards came for Quan. They weren't rough, but they weren't gentle either. They escorted him down staircases and through corridors until he stood in the center of the grand hall. Every eye watched him. He'd never felt so small in his life. Up close, Princess Arenvel was even more beautiful than she'd looked from the gallery. But that wasn't what Quan noticed most. He noticed that she looked relieved, like she'd just escaped from a cage. "What's your name?" she asked him gently. "Quan," he managed to say. "I'm nobody, Your Highness. Just a human engineer. My ship broke down. This is a mistake." "No mistake," she said. She smiled, and for the first time since the ceremony began, she looked happy. "Welcome to the Velkhari Empire, Quan. Your life just became very complicated." She wasn't wrong. As guards led him away to prepare him for whatever came next, Quan looked back at the hall full of angry nobles and rejected candidates. He'd wanted his ship fixed so he could go back to his simple life mining asteroids. That life was gone now. He just wished he knew what came next. Quan woke up in a room that was 10 times bigger than his entire apartment back on Earth. The bed was so soft he'd actually had trouble sleeping. He was used to the thin mattress in his ship's cabin. Everything here felt wrong. Too clean. Too perfect. Too expensive. A servant had brought him new clothes during the night. They fit perfectly, which was creepy because no one had measured him. The fabric felt like water against his skin. He looked at himself in the mirror and barely recognized the person staring back. He looked like he belonged in a palace. He didn't feel like it. The door chimed. Before Quan could answer, it slid open. 3 Velkhari officials entered. They looked angry. "Human," the first one said, "do you understand what you've done?" Quan shook his head. "I haven't done anything. I was just fixing a screen. She chose me. I didn't ask for this." "You have created a political disaster," the second official said. 7 noble houses are threatening to withdraw their support from the Empress. The Dragath ambassador has challenged you to a duel. The Mindari delegation has left the planet entirely. They say choosing a human is an insult to all advanced species. The third official stepped closer. She seemed less angry than the others, more curious. "What is your background, Quan of Earth? What house do you represent? What military achievements have you earned?" "None," Quan said honestly. "I fix machines. I went to engineering school on Earth, then moved to the asteroid colonies to work. My parents are teachers. We don't have noble houses anymore, not really. I'm nobody important." The three officials looked at each other. The curious one spoke again. "The princess chose you anyway. We need to understand why. The Empress has granted you 1 cycle to prove yourself worthy, 30 standard days. You will face a series of trials designed for the Empire's greatest warriors and scholars. If you fail, the selection will be voided." "And if I refuse?" Quan asked. "What if I just want to get my ship fixed and leave?" The first official laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Then the princess will be humiliated. Her judgment will be questioned. Her authority as heir will be weakened. Several houses are already plotting to use this incident to push for a different successor." Quan felt sick. He hadn't asked for any of this. But he also couldn't just walk away and let Princess Arenvel face the consequences alone. She'd chosen him for some reason. The least he could do was try. "Okay," he said. "I'll do the trials." The officials left, but the curious one paused at the door. "For what it's worth, human, I hope you succeed. The Empire needs change. We've been doing things the same way for too long." After they left, Quan sat on the edge of his enormous bed and put his head in his hands. What had he gotten himself into? The door chimed again. This time it was a voice he recognized. "Quan! Open up! I know you're in there!" He jumped up and opened the door. Hierin stood in the hallway, arguing with 2 guards who were trying to stop her. She was short and fierce, with her hair pulled back in the practical ponytail she always wore. She was still wearing her pilot's jacket, covered in patches from every station she'd visited. "Hierin!" Quan pulled her into the room before the guards could grab her. "How did you get here?" "Your ship sent me an automated message that you'd been picked up by a Velkari patrol," she said. "I came as fast as I could. Then I arrive and find out you're caught up in some crazy royal drama. What happened?" Quan told her everything. She listened without interrupting, which was rare for her. When he finished, she was quiet for a long moment. "This is insane," she finally said. "You can't fight alien warriors. You'll get killed." "I know," Quan said, "but what choice do I have?" "We leave, right now. We take your ship and go before this gets worse." Before Quan could answer, the door opened again. Princess Arenvel entered. She looked different than she had during the ceremony. She wore simpler clothes and no crown. She looked younger, more vulnerable. "Please don't take him," she said to Hierin. "I need him." Hierin stepped between them, protective. "You need him? He's not a tool. He's a person. My friend. And you've put him in danger with your games." "It's not a game," Arenvel said. Her voice was soft but firm. "I chose Quan because the Empire is dying. We're so focused on tradition and purity that we've stopped growing. We've stopped learning. I've studied humanity for 3 years. Your species went from basic tools to star travel in less than 10,000 years. You adapt, you survive, you create. That's what we've lost." "So Quan is what? A symbol?" Hierin demanded. "Something to prove your point?" "At first, maybe," Arenvel admitted. She looked at Quan. "But when I saw you working on that screen, I saw something else. You didn't give up. You didn't wait for someone else to fix it. You just solved the problem with what you had. That's what I want for my people. That determination, that creativity." Quan studied her face. She meant it. This wasn't about politics for her. She genuinely believed humanity could help her empire. "The trials," he said. "Tell me about them." Arenvel relaxed a little. "There are 5. Combat, to test your courage. Knowledge, to test your mind. Empathy, to test your heart. Survival, to test your will. And finally, vision, to test your wisdom. They were designed for elite warriors. I won't lie to you. They're almost impossible for someone without training." "Almost impossible," Quan repeated, "but not completely impossible." "No," she said. A small smile appeared on her face. "Not completely." Hierin looked between them. You're actually going to do this. You're actually going to try. Yeah, Quan said. I think I am. Then I'm staying, Yaren declared. If you're going to be stupid, you're going to need help. I'll be your corner person, your advisor, whatever you need. The palace has training facilities, Arenvel said. I can arrange access, and I'll train with you personally if you'll allow it. Over the next week, Quan learned just how unprepared he was. The training facility was filled with warriors from dozens of species. They all stopped to stare when he arrived. Some laughed. Others looked insulted that a human dared to use the same space as them. Arenvel taught him basic combat forms. He was terrible at it. She was patient, but he could see the worry in her golden eyes. Hierin helped him study Velkhari history and culture, downloading entire archives into datapads they could review in his room. News of the trials spread across the empire. Media crews followed Quan everywhere. Some outlets mocked him. Others were cautiously interested. A few human colonies sent messages of support, proud that one of their own had been chosen, even if they knew he'd probably fail. The night before the first trial, Quan couldn't sleep. He stood on his balcony looking at the alien stars. Hierin found him there. You don't have to do this, she said. We can still leave. No, Quan said. We can't. Not anymore. Arenvel was right. Humanity is being watched now. If I run, they'll think we're cowards. If I try and fail, at least I went down fighting. Very heroic, Hierin said, but she was smiling. Fine, let's show these aliens what humans are made of. The first trial was combat. Quan would face a Dragath warrior in single combat. He'd seen Dragath before. They were 8 feet tall, covered in scales like armor, and had claws that could tear through metal. As Quan walked into the arena the next morning, with thousands of aliens watching from the stands, he realized something important. He couldn't win with strength. He'd lose every time. But maybe he didn't need to win. Maybe he just needed to show them what made humans special. Their refusal to give up. Their ability to adapt. Their stubborn determination to survive. The Dragath warrior entered the arena. He was massive, terrifying. He roared, and the crowd roared back. Quan picked up his weapon, a simple staff. It felt light in his hands. Inadequate. He looked up at where Arenvel and Hierin sat in the royal box. They both looked terrified for him. He smiled at them. Then he turned to face the warrior. Time to show them what humanity could do. The Dragath warrior's name was Rokath. He stood in the center of the arena like a mountain, his scales gleaming deep red under the artificial suns, his claws flexed, each one as long as Quan's hand. When he moved, the ground seemed to shake. Quan held his staff and tried to remember everything Arenvel had taught him: stance, balance. Watch your opponent's center mass, not their weapons. But all that training disappeared when Rokath charged. The warrior moved faster than anything that big should be able to move. Quan barely managed to dodge the first strike. The second hit caught him in the shoulder, spinning him around. The third knocked the staff from his hands. The fourth put him on his back, staring up at the alien sky. The crowd cheered. Some laughed. Quan tasted blood in his mouth. Rokath stood over him. Stay down, little human, you fought. That's enough. But Quan didn't stay down. He rolled to the side, grabbed his staff, and stood up. His shoulder screamed with pain. He probably had cracked ribs. It didn't matter. Not done yet, he said. This time, Quan didn't try to fight like Arenvel had taught him. He fought like a human. He used the arena itself. When Rokath charged again, Quan dove behind one of the pillars scattered around the fighting space. The warrior smashed through it, but the delay gave Quan time to think. He couldn't match Rokath's strength, but he could be unpredictable. He threw sand in the warrior's eyes. He used his staff to trip rather than strike. He stayed moving, never letting Rokath pin him down. It wasn't elegant. It wasn't honorable. It was survival. The crowd's laughter changed to murmurs. This wasn't how arena combat usually went. But Quan didn't care about their rules. He lasted 3 minutes before Rokath caught him again. This time, the impact knocked him unconscious. Quan woke up in the medical center. Hyarin sat next to his bed, her face tight with worry. When she saw his eyes open, she punched his arm. "Ow! What was that for?" "For scaring me, you idiot," she said, but her eyes were wet. "You almost got killed. Did I pass?" "No," Arenvel said from the doorway. She entered the room, looking troubled. "The combat masters ruled it a failure. You were defeated." Quan's heart sank. He'd tried so hard, it hadn't been enough. "However," Arenvel continued, "Rokath himself spoke in your favor. He said you fought with honor and creativity. He's requested a rematch in 3 days. If you accept, and if you earn his respect again, he'll petition to count the combat trial as passed." "He wants to fight me again?" Quan sat up, ignoring the pain. "Why?" "Because you interested him," Arenvel said. "Warriors like Rokath live for combat. They've seen every technique, every style, but they've never seen someone fight like you did. Using the environment, refusing to give up even when victory was impossible. He wants to see what else you can do." 3 days later, Quan faced Rokath again. This time, he was ready. He'd studied the arena, he'd practiced his improvised techniques, and he'd accepted something important. He would never beat Rokath, but he could make the warrior work for his victory. The second fight lasted 10 minutes. Quan used everything around him. He broke pillars to create obstacles. He kicked up dust to obscure vision. He even climbed the arena walls, forcing Rokath to follow. It still ended with Quan on the ground, but this time he was smiling. Rokath helped him up. "You fight like prey that has decided not to die. It's beautiful." The crowd cheered. Not mockery this time, respect. The combat masters conferred and declared the trial passed. Quan had proven his courage and adaptability. That was enough. The second trial came 2 days later. Knowledge. Quan had to demonstrate understanding of Velkhari history and culture before a council of scholars. He'd studied every moment he wasn't training, but it wasn't enough. There was too much history, spanning thousands of years and dozens of conquered worlds. The scholars asked him to recite the names of the 7 founders. He got 4 right. They asked him to explain the philosophy of Velsham. He mixed it up with Velkhara. They asked him about the Great Unification War. He barely knew it had happened. The scholars looked disappointed. Some looked offended that he'd even tried. "This is pointless," one said. "The human knows nothing of our culture." "Then let me ask questions instead," Quan said desperately. "Let me learn." The scholars looked surprised. That wasn't how the trial worked. But the head scholar, an ancient Velkhari named Talkor, was intrigued. "Very well," Talkor said. "Ask." Quan spent the next hour asking about everything he'd studied. Why had the 7 founders chosen unity over independence? What had they hoped to achieve? How did their philosophy compare to human history? Were there moments when the empire had almost fallen apart? What had held it together? His questions sparked debate among the scholars. Some wanted to answer in one way, others disagreed. They began discussing things they'd apparently taken for granted for centuries. Quan's perspective as an outsider made them reconsider ideas they'd stopped questioning. Talkor finally called for silence. "Enough. I have a ruling." The room went quiet. "The human has failed to demonstrate mastery of our knowledge," Talkor said. Quan's heart sank. "However, he has demonstrated something more valuable. Curiosity, the willingness to question, the ability to see connections we had missed. In ancient times, before we became obsessed with tradition, this was what we valued most. I rule this trial passed." Half the scholars protested, But Talcor's word was final. Quan had passed 2 trials. The 3rd trial was empathy. Quan had to navigate a complex diplomatic situation. A simulation put him in the middle of a trade dispute between 3 species. Each had legitimate grievances. Each refused to compromise. Previous candidates had tried to impose solutions by force or logic. Quan did something different. He listened. Really listened. He spent hours in the simulation just talking to each party, understanding what they actually wanted beneath their demands. A mining colony needed resources, but they really needed security. A merchant fleet wanted exclusive trade rights, but they really wanted respect. A farming world demanded territory, but they really needed water. Once he understood the real problems, solutions became obvious. He proposed a mutual defense pact that gave the colony security. He gave the merchants naming rights to a trade route, satisfying their pride without costing anything. He helped the farming world access underground aquifers they hadn't known existed. The simulation ended with all 3 parties satisfied. The diplomatic council was stunned. The scenario was designed to be unsolvable, to show that sometimes leaders had to make hard choices. Quan had found a way around it. "Where did you learn diplomacy?" one council member asked. "Mining colonies," Quan said. "Limited resources, lots of strong personalities. You learn to find solutions, or everyone dies when the oxygen runs out." The trial was passed unanimously. 3 trials down, 2 to go, and Quan was starting to believe he might actually succeed. But that night, Yaren came to his room with bad news. "We have a problem," she said. "I've been monitoring communications. There's a group of nobles plotting against you, led by someone named Lord Vexier. His son was one of the rejected candidates." "What kind of plotting?" "The dangerous kind," Yaren said. "They're spreading rumors that Earth sent you as a spy, that you're manipulating the princess. They're trying to turn public opinion against humans." Quan felt cold. "Can we prove it's lies?" "I'm trying. But Quan, there's more. The 4th trial is survival in the wilderness. You'll be alone, no guards. It's the perfect chance for an accident." Arenvel appeared in the doorway. She'd been listening. "We'll cancel the trial. Move it to a controlled environment." "No," Quan said. "If we change the rules now, they'll say I'm getting special treatment. That'll make everything worse." "Then I'm going with you," Arenvel said. "Tradition allows the princess to accompany candidates on the survival trial if she wishes. I never have before, but there's no rule against it." Yaren nodded. "And I'll keep investigating here. If Vexier makes a move, I'll find evidence." Quan looked at both of them. A princess and a pilot, both trying to protect him. He didn't deserve their loyalty, but he was grateful for it. "Okay," he said. "Let's survive together." The 4th trial would take place on the moon of Velkash, a hostile world with toxic atmosphere, predatory wildlife, and extreme temperatures. Candidates usually went alone. This time, Princess Arenvel would be there too. Quan just hoped that would be enough to keep them alive. The transport ship dropped them on Velkash's surface at dawn. The moon's sky was a sickly yellow, and the air smelled like copper and sulfur. Quan's breathing mask filtered out the toxins, but he could still taste the wrongness of this place. 7 days, the pilot said through the comms. "Survive 7 days and we'll pick you up at these coordinates. Good luck." The ship lifted off, leaving Quan and Arenvel alone in a landscape that looked like it wanted them dead. Jagged rocks stretched in every direction. In the distance, something howled. "The survival packs are over there." Arenvel pointed to 2 containers the ship had dropped. "Basic tools, water purification tablets, emergency rations for 3 days. After that, we hunt." Quan opened his pack. Everything looked standard, but something felt wrong. The weight was off. He checked the water tablets. The seal was broken. He checked the rations. The packages were damaged. Their contents spoiled. "Check yours," he said quietly. Arenvel opened her pack. Same problems. Someone had sabotaged their supplies. Vexir, Arenvel said. Her golden eyes went hard. He must have bribed the supply crew. Can we call for extraction? Our comms have a range of only 5 kilometers. The pickup zone is 20 kilometers away. We could try to reach it, but the terrain is dangerous. We'd be traveling blind. So we're stuck here for 7 days with no food and no water, Quan said. He should have been panicking. Instead, he felt strangely calm. This was a problem. He solved problems. Okay, first things first. Shelter and water. They'd landed near a cluster of rock formations. Quan studied them, looking for the best defensive position. He found a shallow cave, just deep enough to protect them from the elements, but not so deep they couldn't watch the entrance. This will work, he said. Help me gather rocks. We'll build a wall across part of the opening. Make it easier to defend. While Arenvel collected stones, Quan examined their tools. 2 knives, a length of synthetic rope, a fire starter, a small medical kit. Not much, but he'd worked with less during his early days in the mining colonies. Water was the critical problem. The survival guide in his pack mentioned that Velkash had underground streams, but they were contaminated with minerals that would shut down human kidneys. Velkari could drink it safely, but Quan couldn't. I can drink the water here, Arenvel said, reading his thoughts. I can hunt for both of us. You focus on shelter. No, Quan said. We split the work. You're trained for combat, so you handle defense. I'll handle engineering solutions. We'll figure out food and water together. Over the next hour, Quan built a distillation system using rocks, their rope, and pieces of their damaged supply containers. It was crude, but functional. He could heat the contaminated water, collect the steam on a cooled surface, and let it condense into drinkable water. It would be slow, but it would work. Where did you learn this? Arenvel asked, impressed. Mining colonies, Quan said. Sometimes the water recyclers break. You learn to improvise or you die. That night they huddled in their cave while something large prowled outside. They could hear its breathing heavy and wet. It scratched at the rocks. Arenvel held a knife, ready to fight. But the wall Quan had built held, and eventually the creature left. You saved us, Arenvel said in the darkness. You would have been fine alone, Quan replied. You're a trained warrior. Maybe, but I wouldn't have thought to build a distillation system. I wouldn't have chosen this defensive position. I would have kept moving, trying to reach the pickup zone. Probably would have gotten killed along the way. She was quiet for a moment. I need to tell you something. Okay. When I chose you, it wasn't random. I've been studying humanity for 3 years. Your species fascinated me. You're so young, so fragile, but you've achieved so much. I wanted to understand why. And, Quan asked, I found something the Empire has lost. Adaptability. We've become rigid. We follow tradition because it's tradition. We've forgotten how to change. She looked at him. I thought choosing you would force change. I thought you'd be a symbol, something to shake up the court. So I was right, Quan said. He tried to keep the hurt out of his voice. I was just a political move. At first, yes, Arenvel admitted. But Quan, somewhere along the way, you stopped being a symbol. You became important. To me. The way you never give up. The way you find solutions where others see only problems. Your kindness, even when people mock you. She stopped, struggling with words. I care about you, not as a tool, as a person. Quan didn't know what to say. Back on Earth, he'd had relationships. They'd all ended eventually. People left when things got hard. But Arenvel was here, in a toxic wasteland, sabotaged and hunted, and she was still here. I care about you too, he said finally. Even though this is the craziest situation I've ever been in, even though I don't understand half of your culture, even though I'm probably going to fail these trials. You haven't failed yet, she pointed out. Yet, he repeated. They both smiled. The next day, they found food. Arinvel killed one of the creatures that prowled at night. It looked like a six-legged lizard the size of a wolf. Its meat was edible for both of them, after Quan cooked it thoroughly. They were surviving. But on the fourth day, everything went wrong. They were collecting water when Quan heard a sound he recognized. Energy weapons, coming from the ridge above them. Down! He tackled Arinvel behind a boulder just as the rock next to them exploded. 3 figures appeared on the ridge. They wore armor without markings. Mercenaries. They fired again, and this time the shots came close enough that Quan felt the heat. Vexir didn't just sabotage our supplies, Arinvel said. He hired assassins. Can you fight them? 3 against 1, in open ground? No. She looked at their shelter. But if we reach the cave, I can defend the entrance. They ran. Weapons fire tore up the ground around them. Quan's lungs burned. His legs screamed, but he kept moving. Arinvel stayed beside him, occasionally turning to throw her knife at their pursuers. She didn't hit them, but she made them take cover. They reached the cave entrance. Arinvel positioned herself behind the rock wall Quan had built. Stay back. Let me handle this. But the mercenaries were smart. They split up. 2 kept firing at the entrance while the 3rd circled around, looking for another way in. They're flanking us! Quan shouted. He grabbed his knife and positioned himself at the back of the cave. The mercenary appeared, weapon raised. Quan did the only thing he could think of. He triggered the fire starter and threw it at the mercenary's face. The device exploded in a flash of light and heat. Not enough to cause real damage, but enough to blind temporarily. The mercenary stumbled. Quan charged, not thinking, just acting. He slammed into the mercenary, driving them both into the rocks outside. Pain exploded in Quan's side. The mercenary had shot him. Not a kill shot, but bad enough. Blood soaked his shirt. Arinvel appeared like a vengeful spirit. She'd left the cave entrance to help him. She moved faster than Quan had ever seen her move. Her combat skills, which had seemed almost gentle in training, became lethal. She disarmed the mercenary in seconds and knocked them unconscious, but now the cave entrance was undefended. The other 2 mercenaries charged in. Arinvel met them at the entrance. The fight was brutal. She was skilled, but they had armor and better weapons. She took down one, but the second landed a hit that sent her sprawling. Quan forced himself to move, despite the wound in his side. He grabbed a rock and threw it at the last mercenary. It bounced off their helmet, but got their attention. The mercenary turned toward him. "Leave her alone!" Quan shouted. The mercenary advanced. Quan had no weapons, no tricks left. He was bleeding and exhausted. But he stepped between the mercenary and Arinvel anyway. Before the mercenary could fire, something hit them from behind. The creature they'd killed for food hadn't been alone. Its mate had tracked the scent of blood. The huge lizard tore into the mercenary, and suddenly the assassin was fighting for their life against razor teeth and claws. The mercenary fled, and the creature didn't follow. It looked at Quan and Arinvel, growled once, and disappeared into the rocks. Arinvel crawled to Quan. "You're hurt. So are you." They patched each other up using the medical kit. Quan's wound wasn't as bad as it looked. The shot had grazed his ribs, but hadn't penetrated deeply. Arinvel had bruises and cuts, but nothing broken. They spent that night holding each other, too hurt and scared to sleep much. But they were alive. They'd survived together. "Hieron was right," Quan said softly. "About the conspiracy. We need proof when we get back." "We have proof," Arinvel said. "We have an unconscious mercenary. And I recorded everything with my optical implant." You have cameras in your eyes? Of course, standard for Velkari nobility. She managed a tired smile. Vexir is finished. 3 days later, the pickup ship arrived. Hyerin was on it. When she saw them, injured but alive, she hugged Quan so hard his ribs ached. I found evidence, she said. Bank transfers, communications, everything connecting Vexir to the sabotage. The Empress has already arrested him. As they flew back to the capital, Quan looked at Arenvel. They'd survived together, not because of strength or training or technology, because they'd worked as a team, because they'd refused to give up. One more trial, he said. One more, she agreed. And after that, everything changes. The medical center smelled like antiseptic and something floral that Quan couldn't identify. The doctors had healed his wound using technology that would have seemed like magic back on Earth. Now only a faint scar remained on his ribs, and even that would fade in a few weeks. Empress Talvera came to visit while he was still recovering. It was the first time she'd spoken to him directly since the selection ceremony. She stood at the foot of his bed, her golden eyes unreadable. Lord Vexir has confessed, she said without preamble. He arranged the sabotage. He hired the mercenaries. He believed that removing you would restore order to the court. What will happen to him? Quan asked. Exile. His house will lose its holdings. His family name will be stripped of honor for 3 generations. She paused. He also believed he was protecting the Empire. That makes him a fool, but not entirely wrong to worry. You have created chaos, human. I didn't mean to. I know. Talvera's expression softened slightly. My daughter believes you can help us. I am beginning to see why. You survived situations that would have killed most warriors. You showed ingenuity, adaptability, and courage. These are not qualities I expected from your species. Most people underestimate humans, Quan said carefully. We're used to it. Perhaps we shouldn't, Talvera said. She turned to leave, then stopped. The final trial is in 5 days, the test of vision. You will present a proposal for how your union with my daughter would benefit the Empire. It requires wisdom, not just survival skills. Do not underestimate it. After she left, Hyerin appeared with food from the palace kitchens. Real food, not the nutrient paste Quan had been eating. She pulled up a chair and watched him eat. You look better, she said. Less like you're about to die. I feel better. These doctors are amazing. He took another bite. Hyerin, I need your help with the final trial. Already ahead of you, she said. She pulled out a data pad. I've been researching while you were playing Wilderness Survivor. The test of vision is traditionally a boring political speech. Candidates propose alliances, trade agreements, military pacts. The council expects something similar from you. But that's not what you should give them, Hyerin said. They need something different, something that shows what humanity can really offer. They spent the next 3 days planning. Hyerin gathered data, ran simulations, and built projections. Quan refined the ideas, making them practical. Arenvel visited when she could, offering insights into Velkari culture and politics. During one late-night planning session, Arenvel brought tea and sat with them. She looked exhausted. The assassination attempt had shaken the court, and she'd been in political meetings non-stop. The nobles are split, she said. Some believe you've proven yourself. Others think the trials were too easy, that I arranged them to help you pass. Did you? Quan asked. No. Well, not intentionally. Maybe I chose trials that would favor your specific skills. She smiled tiredly. Is that cheating? It's smart, Hyerin said. You put him in situations where his strengths mattered. That's just good strategy. They worked until dawn. When Quan finally tried to sleep, his mind was too full of ideas to rest. The final trial would determine everything. If he failed, all the pain and struggle would be for nothing. Worse, Arenvel would be humiliated. Her political enemies would use his failure to undermine her authority. He couldn't let that happen. 2 days before the trial, Rokath the Dragath warrior came to visit. The massive alien had to duck through the doorway. He brought a gift, a small stone carved with symbols. "This is a warrior's token," Rokath explained. "It means you have earned my respect. Few humans can claim that." "Thank you," Quan said, genuinely moved. "It means a lot." "I have fought for 70 years, Rokath said. "I have faced every type of warrior in the galaxy. But you taught me something new. Strength is not just muscle and weapons. Sometimes strength is refusing to quit even when you should. That is a warrior's true power." After Rokath left, Quan held the stone token and thought about what it represented. Respect from someone who had every reason to dismiss him. Recognition that humanity had something valuable to offer. It gave him courage for what came next. The night before the trial, Arenvel found Quan on his balcony. He was staring at the stars again, a habit he'd developed during his time at the palace. "Can't sleep?" she asked. "Too nervous," he admitted. "What if my proposal isn't good enough? What if they reject it?" "Then we try something else," Arenvel said. She stood beside him. "Quan, whatever happens tomorrow, you've already changed things. People are talking about humanity differently now. They're curious instead of dismissive. That matters." "Is that enough?" "I don't know," she said honestly. "But it's a start." They stood in silence for a while. Then Arenvel spoke again, her voice softer. "When this is over, assuming you pass, you'll be my official consort. That comes with responsibilities, political duties, public appearances. Your life will never be private again." "I know." "You could still leave, before the final trial. No one would blame you. This isn't your fight." Quan turned to look at her. In the alien starlight, she looked vulnerable and young, a princess carrying the weight of an empire. He thought about everything that had led to this moment: the broken ship, the selection ceremony, the trials, the assassination attempt. He thought about his old life, mining asteroids, living alone, simple problems with simple solutions. He didn't want to go back. "This is my fight now," he said. "Not because you chose me, because I'm choosing this. I'm choosing you. I'm choosing to believe that humans and Velkari can build something better together." Arenvel kissed him then. It was gentle and careful, like she was afraid he might disappear. When they pulled apart, she was smiling. "Good," she said, "because I'm choosing you too." The day of the final trial arrived. The grand hall was packed with even more people than the selection ceremony. Representatives from every major house attended. Media crews broadcast to billions across the empire. Even representatives from Earth had arrived, nervous about how their species would be represented. Quan stood in the preparation room, wearing formal clothes that Arenvel had chosen for him. They were a blend of human and Velkari styles. Hyaron adjusted his collar and checked the datapad one last time. "You've got this," she said. "Just speak from the heart. Show them who you are. And if that's not enough, then at least you tried. That's more than most people can say." The doors opened. An official gestured for him to enter. Quan took a deep breath and walked into the grand hall. The Council of Elders sat in a semicircle on a raised platform. Empress Talavera occupied the center throne. Arenvel sat beside her mother, her face carefully neutral. Thousands of eyes watched Quan as he approached the center of the hall. The head elder, Talcor, spoke. "Quan of Earth, you have completed 4 trials. You have shown courage, adaptability, empathy, and determination. Now you face the final test. Present your vision. Show us how your union with Princess Arenvel would benefit the Velkari Empire." Quan activated the holographic projector Hyaron had prepared. Images appeared in the air above him, not of weapons or trade routes, something different. "Honored elders," he began, "I'm not going to talk about military alliances or economic treaties. I'm going to talk about something more important. I'm going to talk about survival." The hall went very quiet. Quan gestured to the hologram. It showed a timeline of human history. "My species is young. We've only been in space for a few hundred years. We've made mistakes, wars, environmental collapse, near-extinction events. But we survived because we learned to adapt. We learned to change." The hologram shifted to show Velkhari history. "Your empire has existed for thousands of years. You've built something incredible, stable, powerful, beautiful. But stability can become stagnation. When you stop changing, you stop growing." Some of the elders frowned. Talvera leaned forward, interested. "I'm not here to insult your achievements," Quan continued. "I'm here to offer partnership. Humanity has technology you haven't considered because you've had better solutions. We have perspectives that come from struggle. We have creativity born from having nothing to lose." The hologram showed possible futures. Human and Velkhari scientists working together. Joint military training, cultural exchanges, shared colonies. Imagine what we could build together, not with humans serving Velkhari, not with Velkhari saving humans, but as equals, as partners. He looked directly at the council. "You're worried that choosing me diminishes the princess. I understand that, but I think it does the opposite. It shows that she's wise enough to see value where others see only weakness. It shows that she cares more about the Empire's future than about tradition." The hologram faded. Quan stood alone in the center of the hall. "I can't promise I'll always make the right decisions. I can't promise I'll never embarrass you or fail. But I promise I'll never stop trying. I'll never stop believing that together, humans and Velkhari can be better than either species alone." He paused. "That's my vision. Not conquest, not dominance, partnership. Choose me, and you choose change. Choose me, and you choose hope." Silence filled the hall. Then Rokath stood from where he sat in the observer section. He began to clap. Slowly, others joined. Not everyone, but enough. The elders conferred. Talcor finally spoke. "We will deliberate and announce our decision." Quan bowed and left the hall. He'd done everything he could. Now he could only wait. The waiting room was smaller than Quan expected. Just a simple chamber with plain walls and a single window overlooking the palace gardens. Hieron paced back and forth while Quan sat on a bench, trying not to think about what was happening in the council chambers. "You did great," Hieron said for the 10th time. "Really, that speech was perfect." "It might not be enough," Quan said quietly. "I saw some of their faces. A lot of them looked angry. Some looked inspired too. That elder Talcor, he was nodding during parts of your speech. But will he vote in my favor?" Before Hieron could answer, the door opened. Arnvel entered. She shouldn't have been there. She was supposed to be with the council during deliberations, but she'd come anyway. "I had to see you," she said. She looked stressed, more than Quan had ever seen her. "Whatever they decide, I want you to know something. You were magnificent out there. You spoke truth to power. You challenged an empire to be better. That took more courage than any combat trial." "Will they accept it?" Quan asked. "I don't know," she admitted. She sat beside him. "The council is divided. The older elders resist change. They see your vision as a threat to tradition. But some of the younger ones are excited. They've been waiting for someone to say what you said." "And your mother?" "She's the key vote," Arnvel said. "If she supports you, the others will follow. If she opposes you—" She didn't finish the sentence. They sat together, not speaking, just taking comfort in each other's presence. Hieron stopped pacing and joined them. For a moment, they were just three people facing an uncertain future together. An official appeared at the door. "The council has reached a decision. Your presence is required in the Grand Hall." The walk back felt longer than before. Quan's heart pounded so hard he thought everyone could hear it. When they entered the hall, thousands of faces turned toward them. The atmosphere was tense. Some people looked hopeful, others looked angry, most looked curious about what would happen next. Quan took his place in the center of the hall. Arenvel returned to her seat beside the Empress. Hyerin stood in the observer section, her hands clenched into fists. Talcor stood. The hall went silent. We have deliberated on Quan of Earth's vision for partnership between humanity and the Velkhari Empire. This was not an easy decision. The council was deeply divided. Quan felt his stomach drop. That didn't sound good. However, Talcor continued, after much debate, we have reached a consensus. We recognize that the galaxy is changing. Species that resist change often find themselves left behind. Quan of Earth has demonstrated qualities we value: courage, creativity, determination, and wisdom. Hope flickered in Quan's chest. But more importantly, he has shown us a mirror. Through his eyes, we see ourselves as we have become. Comfortable, stagnant, too focused on what we were, not enough on what we could be. Talcor looked directly at Quan. Therefore, the Council rules that you have passed the test of vision. You have proven yourself worthy. The hall erupted. Cheers from some sections, protests from others. Quan stood frozen, unable to process what he'd just heard. He'd passed. All 5 trials. It was over. But Talcor raised his hand for silence. However, passing the trials is only the first step. The Council has conditions. Quan's relief turned to apprehension. First, Talcor said, the cultural exchange you proposed will begin immediately. Human scholars will be invited to study at our academies. Velkhari diplomats will be sent to Earth. We will learn from each other. That was good. That was what Quan had hoped for. Second, Talcor continued, Princess Arenvel and Quan of Earth will serve a probationary period of 1 year before the formal union ceremony. During this time, they will work together on joint projects between our species. They will prove that their partnership benefits both humans and Velkhari. Still reasonable. Quan nodded. Third, Talcor's voice grew more serious. Quan of Earth must understand that becoming consort to the heir of the Velkhari Empire is not a symbolic position. It carries real responsibilities. He will be expected to learn our language, our customs, our laws. He will represent both humanity and the Empire. He will face scrutiny every day. Some will always question whether he deserves this position. He must prove them wrong through his actions, not just his words. I understand, Quan said. His voice carried across the hall. I accept these conditions. Empress Talvera stood for the first time. When she spoke, everyone listened. I opposed this choice initially, she said. I saw it as my daughter's rebellion, not wisdom. I was wrong. She looked at Quan. You have shown me that humanity has something valuable to offer. Not just technology or military strength, but perspective. A reminder that survival requires change. She descended from her throne and approached Quan. Up close, she was even more imposing. But her eyes were kind. Welcome to the Velkhari Empire, Quan of Earth. May your partnership with my daughter bring prosperity to both our peoples. She extended her hand. Quan shook it, and the hall erupted in cheers again. This time, the protesters were drowned out by supporters. Arenvel came down from the platform. She hugged Quan, not caring about protocol or dignity. She was crying, and so was he. We did it, she whispered. We actually did it. Hyerin pushed through the crowd and joined them. She punched Quan's arm, grinning. I told you you'd pass. You were terrified, Quan said, laughing. Okay, yes, I was terrified. But I believed in you anyway. The celebration that followed lasted for hours. People who'd mocked Quan weeks ago now congratulated him. Even some who'd voted against him admitted he'd earned their respect. Rokath lifted Quan onto his shoulder and paraded him around the hall, declaring him the smallest warrior with the biggest heart. But eventually, the crowds dispersed. The officials left. The media crews packed up their equipment. Quan found himself alone on a balcony, looking at the alien stars once again. Earth was out there somewhere. His old life, simple problems with simple solutions. Part of him missed it. But only a small part. Tired? Arenvel joined him at the railing. Exhausted, he admitted. But happy. Is that strange? No, it's the feeling of accomplishing something important. She leaned against him. We have a year to prove this works, a year to build the partnership you described. That's not long. It's enough, if we work together, she smiled. That's what humans do best, right? Work together, adapt, survive. We're pretty good at that, Quan agreed. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the city lights below. Quan thought about everything that had led to this moment. A broken ship, a princess pointing at him in a crowd, trials that should have killed him, an empire that had given him a chance. What happens now? He asked. Now? Arenvel considered. Now we start the real work. The trials were about proving you could survive, but survival isn't enough. We need to build something. Show the Empire and the galaxy what humans and Velkhari can create together. No pressure, Quan said. She laughed. Welcome to royal life. It's all pressure. At least I'll have help. Yes, you will. Me. Hierin. Even my mother, I think. She'll never admit it, but I saw how she looked at you after the vote. She's impressed. She hides it well. She's had thousands of years of practice. They talked late into the night, making plans for the year ahead. Cultural exchanges, joint research projects, diplomatic missions. It was overwhelming, but exciting too. They were building something new, something that could change the galaxy. Finally, exhaustion caught up with them. Arenvel walked Quan back to his quarters. At the door, she kissed him goodnight. Sleep well, she said. Tomorrow, your new life begins. It already has, Quan replied. After she left, Quan lay in bed and thought about his journey. From a nobody engineer fixing machines in the asteroid belt to consort of an alien princess. It was absurd, impossible, completely real. He thought about humanity, watching from Earth, about all the other humans in mining colonies and space stations. Probably hearing about him on the news, he hoped he was making them proud, showing the galaxy that humans belonged among the stars. Sleep came eventually, bringing dreams of the future, ships flying with both human and Velkhari crews, scientists sharing discoveries, children of both species learning together. It was just a dream for now, but dreams had power. They were the first step toward making the impossible real. And Quan had learned something important during the trials. The impossible just took more work. But with the right people beside you, with determination and creativity and hope, even the impossible could be achieved. He'd proven it once. Now he'd prove it again. The test of vision had shown the Council what could be. Now came the harder part, making it reality. But Quan was ready. Humanity was ready, and the Velkhari Empire, slowly but surely, was ready too. The future was unwritten. Together, they'd write it. 6 months had passed since the final trial. Quan stood in the observation deck of the joint Human-Velkhari research station, watching both species work together in the labs below. A human engineer explained something to a Velkhari scientist, both of them gesturing at a holographic display. In another section, a Velkhari teacher instructed a group of young humans in advanced mathematics. No one was fighting. No one was questioning whether they belonged together. They were just working. It was beautiful. Stop admiring your own work and come look at this, Hieron called from across the deck. She'd been appointed as Earth's official ambassador to the Velkhari Empire 3 months ago. She wore it well, though she still kept her pilot's jacket in her office. Some things didn't change. Quan joined her at another window. Below, in the station's main hangar, a new type of ship was being assembled. It combined human engine design with Velkhari hull technology. The result was faster and more efficient than either species could have built alone.
"The test flight is tomorrow," Hieron said. "Joint crew, half human, half Velkhari. They're calling it the Unity."
"Creative name," Quan said.
"Hey, I didn't pick it. The crew voted."
She looked at him. "You've changed, you know. You stand differently now, more confident." "I've had to learn fast," Quan admitted. "Every day there's some new crisis or opportunity. Last week I mediated a dispute between a human mining company and a Velkhari agricultural world. Yesterday I attended a ceremony honoring Velkhari war heroes. Tomorrow I'm supposed to give a speech at the opening of Earth's first embassy here." Busy guy. Very busy guy. But he was smiling. "It's worth it, though. Look at what we're building." The door opened and Arenvel entered. She'd been in a council meeting all morning. She looked tired but pleased. "Good news," she announced. "The Elder Council has approved funding for 10 more joint research stations, and they've agreed to open military academies to human students. That was a hard fight, but we won." "That's incredible," Quan said. "It's because of you, both of you." Arenvel looked at them. "People see this station working. They see humans and Velkhari cooperating. It's changing minds." "Not everyone's minds," Hieron pointed out. "I still get nasty messages from both species, people who think we're moving too fast." "Change is always uncomfortable," Arenvel said, "but the majority supports what we're doing. That's what matters." She was right. Public opinion polls showed growing support for the human-Velkhari partnership. Trade between Earth and the Empire had increased by 300%. Cultural exchanges were booked months in advance. Young people from both species were learning each other's languages and customs. It wasn't perfect. There were still incidents. A human colony had refused to accept Velkhari advisors. A Velkhari world had restricted human immigration. Old prejudices died hard, but they were dying, slowly but steadily. That evening, Quan attended the ceremony at Earth's new embassy. The building was a beautiful blend of architectural styles, incorporating elements from both cultures. Ambassador Chen gave a speech about friendship and cooperation. Then it was Quan's turn. He stood at the podium looking at the crowd of humans and Velkhari. Some he recognized. Others were strangers. All of them were watching him, waiting to hear what he'd say. "6 months ago," he began, "I was a nobody. Just an engineer with a broken ship. I didn't ask to become a symbol. I didn't want to change the galaxy. I just wanted to fix my engine and go home." A few people in the crowd laughed, recognizing the absurdity of how far he'd come. But Princess Arenvel saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. She saw potential, not just in me personally, but in what humans and Velkhari could achieve together. She took a chance, a huge, crazy, politically dangerous chance. He looked at Arenvel in the front row. She smiled. And you know what? She was right. Not because humans are special, not because Velkhari needed saving, but because partnership makes us both better. When we combine human creativity with Velkhari wisdom, amazing things happen. When we share our struggles and successes, we both grow stronger. Quan gestured to the embassy building around them. This place represents more than just diplomacy. It represents hope. Hope that the galaxy doesn't have to be divided into strong species and weak species. Hope that we can build something together that's greater than what we could build alone. He paused, choosing his next words carefully. There will be setbacks. There will be people who resist change. That's natural. But as long as we keep talking, keep learning, keep trying to understand each other, we'll make progress. That's all we can do. Keep trying." The crowd applauded. It wasn't the thunderous applause from the trial, but it was genuine, warm, hopeful. After the ceremony, Quan mingled with guests. A young human student approached him nervously. "Excuse me, sir? I just got accepted to a Valkyrie military academy. I'm scared. What if I don't fit in?" Quan remembered his own fear during the trials. "You won't fit in at first. That's okay. Show them what humans can do. Be yourself. Work hard. They'll respect you for it." "Did it work for you?" "Eventually," Quan said, "but it took time. And I had help from people who believed in me." The student thanked him and left, looking slightly less terrified. Quan hoped he'd done some good. Later, much later, Quan and Arenvel returned to their shared quarters in the palace. It was the first time they'd been alone all day. They collapsed onto the couch, exhausted. "3 more months until the formal union ceremony," Arenvel said. "Think we'll make it?" "We've made it this far," Quan said. "What's 3 more months?" 3 more months of politics. Ceremonies, speeches, diplomacy." She groaned. "Sometimes I miss the simplicity of the survival trial. Just us, toxic atmosphere, and things trying to kill us." "Don't forget the assassins." "How could I forget the assassins?" She laughed. "We've come a long way since then." They had. The probationary period was almost over. The council had seen enough evidence that the partnership worked. The formal ceremony would make their union official. Quan would officially become consort to the heir of the Valkyrie Empire. It still seemed surreal. "Are you happy?" Arenvel asked suddenly. "I know this isn't the life you planned. You gave up a lot." Quan considered the question seriously. He'd given up privacy, freedom, the simple life he'd known. He worked harder now than he ever had in the asteroid mines. Every decision he made was scrutinized. Every word he said was analyzed. But he'd gained something too: purpose, partnership, the chance to make a real difference. And Arenvel. Above everything else, he'd found someone who understood him, who challenged him, who believed in him. "Yes," he said finally, "I'm happy. Not because everything is easy, but because everything matters. What we're building matters." "Good," Arenvel said. She rested her head on his shoulder. "Because I'm happy too. Happier than I've ever been." They sat in comfortable silence, both of them too tired to move. Outside their window, the city glowed with lights from 1,000 species. Ships came and went from the spaceport. The galaxy kept spinning. The next morning brought new challenges. A trade dispute needed mediation. A human colony requested military support against pirates. A Valkyrie world wanted to establish an exchange program with Earth's universities. Quan and Arenvel tackled each problem together, finding solutions that worked for both species. It wasn't always easy. They had arguments. Sometimes cultural differences caused misunderstandings. Sometimes the pressure felt overwhelming, but they worked through it. And slowly, gradually, the galaxy changed around them. More species began to notice what humans and Valkyrie were building. Some were curious, others were jealous. A few even approached Earth and the Empire about forming their own partnerships. The model Quan and Arenvel had created was spreading. Hyerin oversaw much of the practical work. She coordinated the exchange programs, negotiated trade agreements, and handled the daily logistics of interspecies cooperation. She was brilliant at it. Tough when she needed to be, diplomatic when it mattered, always focused on results. "You know," she told Quan one day, "when I followed you to this palace 6 months ago, I thought I was rescuing you from a trap. Turns out you rescued the whole galaxy from stagnation." "I had help," Quan said. "Yeah, you did. From me." She grinned. "Seriously, though, I'm proud of you. You took an impossible situation and made it work. We all did, Quan insisted. You, me, Arenvel, even Empress Talvera. This was a team effort. Fine, team effort, but you were the catalyst. None of this happens without you. Maybe she was right, but Quan preferred to think of himself as just one part of something bigger, one piece of a puzzle that was still being assembled. The formal union ceremony was held 3 months later, exactly 1 year after the selection ceremony that had started everything. The grand hall was even more crowded than before. Representatives from Earth filled an entire section. Human media crews broadcast to billions of viewers back home. The ceremony itself was a blend of human and Velkhari traditions. Quan wore clothes that incorporated elements from both cultures. Arenvel's crown was decorated with crystals from Earth alongside traditional Velkhari jewels. When they exchanged vows, they did so in both languages. I choose you, Arenvel said in human standard. Not because of what you represent, but because of who you are. Partner, friend, love. I choose you, Quan replied in Velkhari. The words still felt clumsy in his mouth, but he'd practiced. You gave me a chance when no one else would. You believed in humanity when others saw only weakness. You changed my life. You changed the galaxy. Empress Talvera performed the binding ceremony. When it was complete, she announced to the hall, Quan of Earth is now consort to the heir of the Velkhari Empire. Let all species know that this union represents a new era, an era of cooperation, growth, hope. The celebration lasted for 3 days. Ships from dozens of worlds arrived to offer congratulations. Gifts poured in from across the galaxy. The Unity, the joint human-Velkhari ship, performed a demonstration flight that broke several speed records. But the moment Quan remembered most came on the second day. He was taking a break from the festivities, standing in a quiet garden behind the palace. A group of children found him there. Human and Velkhari kids playing together. They didn't care about politics or tradition, they just saw potential friends. One small Velkhari girl approached him. Are you the human who married the princess? I am, Quan said. My teacher says you're helping humans and Velkhari become friends. I'm trying, Quan said. Good, the girl said seriously. My best friend is human. Her name is Mina. We want more humans to come visit. The children ran off to continue playing. Quan watched them go, feeling something tight in his chest. This was what mattered, not the ceremonies or the speeches, but children of different species playing together, seeing each other as friends rather than aliens. Arenvel found him in the garden. There you are. People are looking for you. Let them wait, Quan said. Come watch this. They stood together, watching the children play. Human and Velkhari, running and laughing without any awareness of the boundaries their ancestors had drawn. This is what we're building, Arenvel said softly. Not for us. For them. For all of them, Quan agreed. Every child who'll grow up in a galaxy where cooperation is normal, where different species working together isn't remarkable, it's just how things are done. It's a good vision. It's your vision. You saw it first. No, Arenvel said. I saw the possibility. You made it real. They returned to the celebration hand in hand. There was still work to do, more species to convince, more partnerships to build, more challenges to overcome. But for now, they'd earned a moment to celebrate what they'd achieved. That night, standing on a balcony overlooking the city, Quan looked up at the stars. Earth was out there. His home. Somewhere, millions of humans were watching news of the ceremony, seeing one of their own standing beside an alien princess, seeing proof that humanity belonged among the stars. He hoped he'd made them proud, hoped he'd shown that humans didn't need to be the strongest or the smartest. They just needed to be themselves, adaptable, creative, determined, hopeful. What are you thinking? Arenville asked. That I'm the luckiest person in the galaxy, Quan said, and also that we have a lot more work to do. Both can be true. Both are true. They stood together, looking at the future they were building. It wasn't perfect. It would never be perfect. But it was better than what had come before. And it would keep getting better as long as they kept trying. The galaxy was watching. Humanity had proven itself, and the real work was just beginning. But Quan wasn't worried. He'd learned something important during the trials. The impossible was just another problem waiting to be solved. And humans were very good at solving problems. Together with the Velkari, with Arenville by his side, with Hyerin managing the details, with both species learning to see each other as partners rather than strangers, they would build something amazing. They already had. And this was just the beginning.